As you just heard there, the White House offering condemnation of last night's military coup in Myanmar and threatening sanctions against the country. This is the first foreign policy flashpoint for the Biden administration. After 4 years of Donald Trump, how much credibility does America have in the world when it preaches democracy and the rule of law? Let's pull in Jonathan Katz now from the German Marshall Fund in Washington, D.C. Jonathan served as advisor at the U.S. State Department, and he was a foreign policy advisor on Capitol Hill. Jonathan, it's good to have you back on the show. The United States, as you know, has condemned the military coup in Myanmar. President Biden is reportedly threatening sanctions. Economic sanctions, they're one thing. How much of a moral force, though, does the U.S. have at the moment?
Well, I think first and foremost, the new administration, President Biden, has come out quickly to condemn what's taken place in Burma. Let's not forget it was the Obama administration with Vice President Biden that helped move Burma forward democratically several years ago. So there's a lot of history and experience with the U.S. working with the current government, unfortunately, the current government that's actually now jailed. And so I think this administration is moving very quickly, one, to express its concerns, and then expressing what options might be on the table if those that have been locked up are not released. So I think they've moved really quickly. Of course, the issue of President Trump, the situation in Burma looks an awful lot like you saw in the U.S. election, where you had a free and fair election, and then you had somebody trying to say, in this case, it's the military in Burma, that it wasn't a legitimate election. So this new administration is doing the right thing, reaching out to allies and partners in the region and saying that it's going to stand up for democracy. And this is critical early on in this administration to draw a line in the sand on this type of an issue.
The leader of Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, she is a Nobel Peace Laureate. She once enjoyed tremendous goodwill in the international community. She doesn't have that to lean on now, does she?
Well, I think, and we could debate whether or not the engagement over the last 4 years, particularly the United States and others, has been at the right level with her government. Obviously, concerns about the Rohingya, about treatment and human rights should have been on the top of the list of concerns. But right now, what we're talking about is an election that took place several weeks back in November, what looked like a free and fair democratic election. And in this case, the military coming in, locking those people up because they don't like the results. And what you have now is a diplomatic standoff and crisis that requires U.S. attention, but that of our European partners and Asian partners. And of course, there is a China factor involved in this as well.
Let me take you now from Myanmar to Russia. We've got the detainment and the imprisonment of Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny. Talk to me about what, if anything, the Biden administration can do to pressure President Vladimir Putin here.
Well, they already, in the first conversation that President Biden had with Mr. Putin, he put the Navalny issue right on the table, saying that he needs to be released. This is a sea change from literally 2 weeks ago when President Trump wouldn't even raise this issue with his counterpart. So what you're seeing is increased U.S. political pressure. There's certainly the threat of sanctions if he's not released. But there's also concerns, longer-term concerns about how Mr. Putin is going to go about Duma elections this year. Real concerns about fraud. And so I think this administration may be looking at potentially targeting Russians close to Mr. Putin for sanctions. That list is not exhaustive. Mr. Navalny and his people, just within the last day, have produced a list of those that could be sanctionable. I'm not saying that the U.S. should do this, but it may be something that they should consider.
Well, talk to me. Let me pick up on this stark difference that we are seeing now in terms of the U.S. State Department, the U.S. Secretary of State, and, of course, the White House, the reaction to these two crises compared to what we experienced when Donald Trump was president.
Yeah, I mean, it's really night and day, and you're seeing the U.S. under President Biden's leadership, under Secretary of State Blinken, move very quickly to address these challenges. Previously, you wouldn't see a direct reaction from President Trump, particularly on anything related to Mr. Putin. He stepped back and played, in fact, in many cases, what Democrats and Republicans felt was the wrong role. So I think there's a lot of people applauding this immediate effort to address these challenges. And said, this is sort of like drawing a line in the sand on key issues, that the U.S. is back on the global stage, that we're going to be leading on these issues. And I think the conversation that President Biden had with Mr. Putin really laid down the marker, particularly about interference in the United States, whether we're talking about cyber issues, whether we're talking about interference in elections. But the President Biden also raised Ukraine and a number of key issues of concern to the United States directly. So I think it's a new day.
Yeah.
I think that it's a new administration, but I think that the message has been sent to Moscow that the United States, particularly this president, is not going to stand for interference and for their efforts to harm U.S. interests, both in the United States and globally.
Yeah, the difference is certainly remarkable, to say the least. Jonathan Katz with the German Marshall Fund joining us tonight from Washington, D.C. Jonathan, we appreciate your time and your insights. Thank you.
Absolutely. Good to see you.